Hey, church family. I'm so glad you guys are joining us for the Devo this week. This week, if you're reading along with us in the Foundations book, or if you came to church this past Sunday, the verse that we read was 1 Samuel 16:7, and in your Foundations books, that's one of the memory verses that we want to put to memory this week. And what that says is, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." And as I read that, I couldn't help to think of a passage that I've always put to heart, and that's 1 Timothy 4:12. And let me read it to you. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, "Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set the example for believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." And if you look back at 1 Samuel 16:7, just a little context on what's going on, the kingdom of Israel, starting in 1 Samuel, they wanted a king. They wanted to be like every other nation in the world, and so they decided, we want a king. So God decided to appoint Saul, and Saul worked for the Lord for a little bit, but then, as we know, Saul strayed from the Lord, did his own thing, and then God was set to appoint a new king, and that new king that he chose was David. Well, we know David had a ton of older brothers, and so as Samuel was coming to appoint the new king, he went from brother to brother, and is this the one? Is this the one? Well, this one is tall. Well, this one is strong. Well, this one has broad shoulders. And he went from brother to brother and seeing all these physical traits that made them kingly. However, we know that David was the one that was appointed king. Now, David was younger than the rest. He was smaller than the rest. He was a little scrawny. And so he's not what you would typically think of as a kingly person. And so when you look back at 1 Timothy 4:12, we have to understand a little context in that. And we have Paul writing to Timothy and encouraging him. Now, I think it's important to read what's before and what's after. And I love what 1 Timothy 4:11 11 through 16 says. So let me read that for us. It says, "Command and teach these things. Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Until I come, give your attention to public reading, exhortation, and teaching. Don't neglect the gift that is in you. It was given to you through prophecy with the laying on of hands by the council of elders. Practice these things. Be committed to them, so that your progress may be evident to all. Pay close attention to your life and to your teaching. Persevere in these things, for in doing this, you will save both yourself and your hearers." And as I read that, I couldn't help but thinking back to David. David had to spend time in the Word and memorizing God's scriptures and God's words, and in prayer. And if we know anything about David, he loved to sing to the Lord, and that was his gift. And we know that he did that a lot. And so, in encouraging younger believers, it's so important for older believers or more mature believers to reach out to the younger generation and to walk alongside them, to help them understand their gifts. That way they can worship the Lord in those gifts, understanding them and giving God the praise that he deserves through their gifts. However, it's important for kids to be able to listen to their elders and their adults. If you look back at David didn't do it on his own. David had people pouring into him and discipling him. He had people walking alongside him and encouraging him. And with Timothy, this letter is coming directly from Paul. Paul, at this point, is a mature believer that is encouraging Timothy, encouraging the younger generation. So it's important for the older generation to reach out to the younger generation and to encourage them. But it's so important for the younger generation to listen and to hear, because the older generation has wisdom and has experience. And so I hope as you go through these next few weeks, that you can be encouraged, that you can reach out to the younger generation, that you'd be willing to listen to the older generation, because they have words of wisdom that we, as the younger generation, can gain a lot from. So thank you guys so much for listening to this Devo today, and I hope you guys have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you Sunday.